right from the word go, I wanted to make sure that I was framing this in a positive way, because at the time my job was climbing, all my friends were climbing, my husband's a climber, and I didn't want this to be something that was going to define me.
Welcome, my name's Davey Wright, and today I am talking to Gilly Mcarthur. She, amongst many things, is an illustrator, climber, an open water swimmer, and star of the film Body of Water. So, Gilly, welcome.
Hello.
Hello. We're just warming up.
We are, yes.
After being in the lake. My toes are still cold. I think everything else is pretty much back to normal.
My toes are still cold as well, actually. Yeah. My brain's not quite with it, so if I don't make any sense, that's why.
Interesting.
I know.
And you've got a little hot water bottles there.
These are my two little blue ball hot water bottles. They're nice though. They're nice and warm.
They're cute. Yeah.
Anyway, I'll put them back in my pocket for now.
Put your balls away.
Yeah.
So, how are you? How are you keeping?
I'm good. I'm really good. Yeah. Day 21 of my swims every day this month.
Every day in January.
So,
and well, we'll just touch on that at the moment. What's the premise of your everyday swim? What are you doing there?
So every day for the last couple of years in January, I've swum for charity. So I started about 4 years ago swimming in January for Mind, the mental health charity, and that was seeking out like sort of bodies of water to swim in that were a bit higher up, a bit more adventurous. And then this year I'm swimming again, but this time it's for a charity called CAM UK, which are a suicide charity, and they help people with mental health struggles in that way. And but this year I'm changing it up, because in the years gone by I've swum by myself, and this year I'm swimming with different guys every day to highlight the fact that cold water and open water swimming, but specifically cold water, is really amazing for mental well-being, not just for women but for men too. So finding different guys to swim with. So you were my different guy to swim with today.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
No problems. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure. It did take a bit of getting into the water, obviously, because it was. But I don't think it's as cold as it's been. Obviously, I think. What did you measure what was in?
Today was 6, and the average, I think, this month that I've been swimming in has been about 5.5, 6.
Okay.
Last year it was a lot colder, and every swim was under 5 degrees. But at this time of year, it's a bit of a swim, but not a distance. I'm just really doing it for getting that cold hit. So yeah,
fair enough. And am I right in saying that is it right in saying that there's probably more women wild water swim than men, or do you think it's pretty 50-50 now? Is that?
Do you know, I think that there's definitely more women swim than men, certainly in the UK, and certainly that seems to be what I would be reading and what I certainly see as well. I think there's lots of reasons for that, but I think that there are lots more men getting into open water swimming now. And there's loads of groups that are setting up across the UK. I think there's 5 or 6 groups now for men. There's definitely a different sort of experience with men and with women swimming, but ultimately the end goal is exactly the same, which is to get a big rush of dopamine, serotonin, and all the happy hormones, and to make you feel great about your day. And you've done something which is openly looking quite challenging, and is quite challenging to yourself, but then it sets you up for the day ahead. So,
And is that why you got into open water swim? What was your progression into it?
Oh, so I'm from the northeast of Scotland, and so when I was little I used to go swimming, but like in the sea, and maybe in lochs, going over onto the west coast and stuff. But I was never a competitive swimmer, and then I moved to the Lake District to be nearer the climbing, but it rains a lot. So I found, I was down at the water one day and I thought it might just be nice to give this open water swimming thing a go. And the first time I went, I wore a big surf wetsuit, and there were a bunch of women down here that were swimming in just their swimming costumes. And I thought, that looks interesting, but surely they're going to die. Because, and I genuinely thought, and I've said this before in interviews and stuff, I genuinely thought that they were going to put on goose fat, because that's, you know what, the
When they
channel
swim the
film
channel,
was way.
yeah.
And they didn't, and I thought, crikey, this is really bold what they're doing. Anyway, the next day, they didn't put on goose fat, and they got in, and I faffed around in my wetsuit. But I was only in the water for a couple of minutes. And then the next day, they'd suggested, look, ditch the wetsuit and just get in, because ultimately what you're doing at this time of year, it's like October, November time, is getting in for the cold. And distance is something that you can do in the summer or with a wetsuit, but really it's about the cold for me. And what I love about it is the fact that it opens up all year round any body of water, so long as you know how to approach it safely and do your sort of risk assessment first. You're opening up all the seasons to you to find something which is for yourself, and you can just go ahead and do it. So I'm always swimming around with, I've always got my swimming costume in my car.
Right.
I can see
just
a
in
body
case.
of water,
Just in case.
I will plop in and get into it. Yeah. So it's lovely. It's lovely.
Yeah.
It's a nice way to connect to the seasons.
Well, let's sort of flip it back a bit and talk about your kind of journey in the outdoors, I suppose. So where did your outdoor journey start? You mentioned you were from the northeast of Scotland. How did that start to and take you to sort of towards where you are now?
So when I was small, I did a lot of like being outside, playing in trees, being a bit of a sort of, had a lot of freedom to play and to imagine and to do things outside. So I was really lucky in that regard. My mum and dad were always forcing us to go outside, even when it was raining and crap weather, with just our shorts and stuff, and you just dry off and that'd be fine. And so and then I really got into more outdoorsy stuff, actually probably quite late on. Maybe I was like in my mid-20s when I started to engage more with going outside, getting into a bit of running and that kind of stuff. But really, it's sort of fast forwarded quite a lot. I had a big job working for a company called Gap, and I was working really hard, doing 70 hours a week for them. Cut me in half, and it would have said Gap right through the middle of me, and that was my sort of family. I was just like loving that work. Big corporate work, and worked in New York and San Francisco, and then got a bit burnt out, so took a year off. And I thought, well, what could I do? I'll go and live in the Alps. So I moved to Chamonix. Wanted to learn to snowboard. Got a job working in a bar, and fell in love with like spending more time outdoors, and realised that there was probably a different path that I could travel on. And basically from that started to look at what I could do differently with my life to spend more time in the outdoors and in a way which was going to nourish me a bit more, because the career path that I'd had been brilliant, and it had definitely brought me to the place where I was at now, but I wanted to maybe change things up a bit. So I moved back to the UK, and I got a job for a snowboarding company. And then sort of the rest is history. I worked with them for a couple of years, and then moved over to work for about 8 or 10 years for a rock climbing brand called DMM. And then moved here. So really the experience was to get those jobs. It was good because I'd had that big corporate experience and understanding, and I took big pay cut to come and work in the outdoor industry, but the work-life balance was better. It was more nourishing for my mental well-being, better crack, really found my tribe in the outdoors, and so that's how I've got to where I am now. So now I'm freelance, but I still work with outdoor brands. But yeah.
What was it that triggered the coming out of the corporate, come away from Gap? Was it something significant, or was it just burnt out? Or
I was just quite burnt out, I think. I really enjoyed it, but I was going to be definitely sort of filling dead man's shoes. I was having to wait for the right position to come up. And ultimately that progression was just always ever going to continue up the way, you know. So I had a nice car and lovely clothes and and then it's basically, so the next step up would be to get an even nicer car and even nicer clothes, and that path is only ever going to go one way, which is that you're still never really going to be that satisfied, you know. But certainly for me anyway. Just fancied a change. I had this sort of niggle in the back of my mind that maybe there was something else out there that could be, and I was putting in a lot of hours, and I felt quite like a shadow. I felt a little bit like I was maybe a shadow.
Okay.
And so they were great. They said, look, I asked for a year off, a 1 year career break, which they didn't do that much as a company. And they said, yeah, that's great, but you definitely need to come back because we've invested a lot of money in your training. I was like, yeah, I'll come back, I promise. And I went back after I'd worked, after I'd lived in Chamonix. I came back for about another 6 months and then realised
it was time to find a new path.
You know, and I think I was lucky that I was able to sort of, you know, with my childhood, be sort of brave enough to make that decision and to do that. But I think it did take. It was quite a hard decision to just go, right, I'm going to sack off this corporate stuff and do something else. But I'm so much happier.
Yeah.
And I've had so many experiences that I just wouldn't have had if I was now the, you know, whatever it was of some big
cheese,
company, big cheese in some big company.
Yeah.
You know, I certainly wouldn't be sitting on the shores of Lake Windemere on a Saturday morning chatting to you. Do you know what I mean? I'd be in London, probably in some big fancy house with, you know, blah, blah, blah. So I think it's just, I'm lucky that I was at right time, right place to make that bounce.
It's nice when that happens. Well, nice is probably understatement.
Really nice. No, really. I mean, I'm really, really lucky, and I got into climbing kind of quite late on as well. You know, met a bunch of climbers that took me under their wing, and so all of those experiences. It's like that old film, Sliding Doors. You know.
Yeah. Well, would you see yourself? Would you see yourself in a different life if it came about? Yeah, I know. If that had gone that way.
Yeah.
So climbing, you've done. I've seen you on social media, known you for a little bit now, and you were on a big trip in America, and you hurt yourself quite badly. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So I was in Utah, and it was in about 2011, I think. So maybe like 10 years ago now, 9 years ago. We were on a big trip around America. We'd hired a van and we were doing a big 3 months trip around the States, starting in Yosemite and then going clockwise up to Idaho. And then we were then climbing in Utah. And have you ever climbed there?
No.
It's just amazing. It's just the most beautiful. The desert there is just something else.
Yeah.
And I was climbing on a big pillar. And the rock climbing there is really beautiful. It's a very sort of pure style of climbing because you're just climbing like the space in between. There's no holds, you're just climbing the spaces in between.
Yeah,
so it's splitter cracks that you're climbing. And I was on the top of this route, put some gear in, and done all the hard climbing, put a bit of gear in above my head, went to clip it with my rope and pulled out a bit of rope and went to try and clip the piece of gear, and so I had quite a lot of slack out, and my foot just popped out the crack, and so I fell about 30 feet.
Right.
I didn't hit the ground because I was about however many feet up. It was really high up, but I just slammed into the rock, and when I slammed into the rock I knew I'd done something fairly hefty, and there was a sharp pain in my back, and sort of screamed, got lowered to the ground quickly, and got laid on the ground and realised that I'd done something quite sort of bad. But I could wiggle my toes, so I knew I was okay. You know, I was like, right,
that
okay.
Initial...
My toes, I can still wiggle them, that's fine. But I went to sit up, and then I could feel a really sharp pain in my back. And the guys went off and got the rescue. And if you have an accident in the national park there, they call out the cavalry. So there was like the sheriff's office and the national park rangers and the wardens and stuff. And the rescue was big. There's about maybe like 30 people sort of turned up, and I remember there was a sheriff. I never knew this was a thing. They have a proper badge with a star on it. I was like, wow,
like the teleprogram.
Like the teleprogram. So it's like, yeah, the star. Anyway, and they got stretchered out and got taken to Moab, which was like the local hospital. And they realised that I'd done something maybe a bit worse. So I got taken then to Colorado, to the hospital there.
Right.
And I was in a spine unit for 10 days. And I'd broken my back and I'd broken my ribs. So I was really lucky in that it could have been so much worse. And it was great. I had really good insurance. And once they understood that my insurance was really robust, they just threw everything at it. So I was in, you know, if you're going to break your back, it was probably the best place to break my back. You know.
Said no one ever.
Oh, every silver lining.
Yes.
Every cloud and all that.
Yeah.
Yes, I was there for 10 days and then I got flown back to the UK.
Okay.
But like on the back of that accident, I had a sort of, right from the word go, I wanted to make sure that I was framing this in a positive way, because at the time my job was climbing, all my friends were climbing, my husband's a climber, and I didn't want this to be something that was going to define, you know, me having I can never do this again. So I was trying to look at the positive things in it, and I was really lucky. My husband had broke his neck. Was it a couple of years before? And so it was quite, you know, we were both like, right, there's definitely a 9 life that's gone there. He'd broken his neck in a snowboarding accident.
Right, okay.
And was really lucky.
Right.
So
well,
we're both like...
glad the luck is on your side.
I know, I'm not sure if our insurance company's so happy about that. The premiums went up a lot.
Any kind of long-term issues from it? All gone, all?
No, the weird thing, I don't know if it's ever broken a rib, but the one weird thing, so my back's totally fine.
Right.
But the one weird thing is that my rib on this side underneath my boob twists round sometimes. I don't know why. So sometimes if I'm climbing now and I stretch, the rib will sort of pop out and gets a bit sore. But it's just that one rib.
Right.
So it's not too bad. It's not too bad. Yeah, exactly.
And you mentioned, so you're still climbing. It's not stopped you or hindered you in any way to
No, and
hard?
I went back to Utah 2 years later, a year later, 2 years later, and went back and climbed there again, and so it was
same route.
I didn't go and do the same route, but we did pass it. It's a bit of a walk up a hill, but the sensation of being there. I mean, the first time I went back to climb, my husband, poor guy, I was just like, I can't do this. But it's one of those things that if you just open the box up of what's going on a wee bit, then it's fine, you know. And I think that if you put these things on a shelf and lock them away, you'll never get over it. So
you have to kind of embrace it a little bit
to get
through it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what
feel the fear and do it anyway.
Exactly.
So still climbing, obviously introduced open water swimming to the mix of that. You have a very unique illustrative is that the right word? Illustrative way. I'm sure there's not a better word for that, but I see them everywhere. They're really unique and fun. Where does that come from? Was that part of your job when you were corporate in Gap, or is that something that's developed?
No, I used to always draw when I was wee, and then I really wanted to go to art school, but my dad was very, also worked in the corporate world, and he was very much like, you're not going to get a job being an artist. And I was always thinking, well, I'm definitely not going to if I don't go to art school. I mean, at least if I go to art school, I might get a job. But he was quite adamant to 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 make it that I was going to be going to university, not art school, even though I was much better at art and English than anything else. But I ended up going to university in Edinburgh, but I was based at the art school, so it was kind of annoying because I was with all these people that were really bohemian and walking around, with bits of paintbrushes in their hair and daubs of paint on their faces and covered in like clay and stuff, and I was like, I just want to be part of you. And I was going off and doing economics and statistics and engineering classes and just being a bit like, this is not what I signed up for. And I did 5 years at university doing town planning, so it's an honours degree, very much working towards working as a town planner or within the environmental science world, which I didn't do. I got my degree, and then on the day that I graduated I pretty much burnt all my degree notes and stuff. But I've always drawn for myself, and the illustrations are something that I love doing, and so now I do that for work, as well as other bits and bobs. So mostly for rock climbing and swimming, but I also do work for different brands, maybe for books, and just whatever comes my way. If I can see the image in my head, then I know that the commission will be a good one. I'm not very good at drawing things if I can't see what it will look like first. So I'm quite intuitive in how I draw. So,
I think the one that sort of always sticks in my mind is the one you did, and somebody who's out, or probably yourself, who's out wild water swimming, and it was all the things below.
I know.
Get your feet and and all these things. That was quite. Because a lot of people think that's a very sort of poignant image, if you like.
Well, that was a really nice one because I actually, because I'm not on Facebook, but on Instagram it was great. I did a little story and I just said, I'm needing some inspiration for an illustration. What things do people think of that lie beneath the surface? And so it was brilliant because I didn't need to have to think of I know what I think's under the surface. But I must have had so many comments, and it was so easy, Davey, because it was like, oh, right, okay. And so people were just saying socks and, octopuses and mermen with feathers, which I thought was quite interesting. Mermen with feathers that tickle your feet. I was like, right, I can draw that. And I got some really dark ones that I couldn't draw. Like, really dark. Oh. Especially there's a guy, a swimmer that's over in Europe, and the stuff that he was saying, I was like, I'm not drawing that. That's meant to be a nice. And then in that drawing, I drew some seaweed, and then it's this seaweed man, but he's got a tiny little bit of a frond, which looks a little bit like a willy, and then I coloured it in a sort of willy colour, and so in the image it looks like a really lovely image, but then I called it Weedy Willy because he's there and he's got this little woo, and anyway, just hiding little things hiding little things in the images like that.
It's good. I remember that. So jump back to open water swimming then again. So when we came out of the water, you and Charlie were talking about the benefits, the physical benefits that sort of lead on to the mental benefits. So what, for people who want to get into that type of swimming, what are the benefits for them if they decided that's what they were going to do?
So cold water, it's basically in the UK, the water's about 15 degrees a lot of the year, and that's classed as cold water. So basically there is, it's really worth saying that getting into open water swimming in the UK is best done not alone, and it's best done with a group, and it's best done with people that know what they're doing. And there's so many groups now across the UK, it's dead easy to find a group that are going to be meeting up and just go with someone else. In terms of the physical benefits, it's the cold water is when you get into cold water, you're getting a big dopamine, serotonin, like happy hormone sort of rush. It's also flushing your lymphatic system. So when you get out the water, you know how we went red.
Yes.
That's really pushing your circulation, and it's really what you're doing is you're doing something which looks like it's quite tricky, but actually you're realizing that you're conquering something. So the rest of your day you can go, well, I managed to get into the water, therefore I can now go ahead with the rest of my day. It's also very grounding, so you're getting away from your screens and your Wi-Fi, and it's a very present, sharp focus of like, I'm here and this is what I'm doing. Plus you're feeling weightless, and also you don't need to swim. Like this morning we were not really swimming, we were just bobbing about.
I was definitely bobbing about.
But that
there was no swimming.
Yeah, but that bobbing about and that sort of sense of community and camaraderie and that sort of stripping off of ego just to get into the water really binds us in a way which a lot of experiences on land don't so much. You can still be quite hidden, but there's something about just showing a sort of raw sense of self in the water, which is sort of transcends anything else. And I think that's why it's so special. And I think that's why I run a group on the first Sunday of every month, which is a free group, and it's with 2 mental health practitioners and me and another 2 swim coaches, and we have water safety as well. And it's just for people that just want to give it a go. So even if they just turn up and dip their toe in the water or get up to their knees, the fact that they showed up to give it a shot.
What's the name of that group?
It's called Blue Mind Swim.
Yeah.
And it's down at Felfoot at the National Trust place down there. But and it's just about giving people an understanding of how to get into water safely with the right environmental considerations as well. And signpost where they can get more information to do it further. Okay. So there's one lady that came down on the first ever Blue Mind Swim that I ran, and she was wearing a big flowery swimming costume, and she had a dressing gown, and she'd never got into water before. And fast forward now to this year, she's swimming every day, she's off her antidepressants, and she's raising money for Crisis. So it's a total life transformation for her. And she would never have considered doing it before. And she wouldn't have hired a swim coach to do it. So it's just a show up, give it a shot. And I think that's why so many people are finding it so powerful now. Especially since, you know, with COVID and us being stripped away of things that we can and can't do and stuff. You know, I think that's why so many people are loving it, because people are sort of reclaiming a little bit of freedom back and doing something which is for them.
You can also do it in your wheelie bin if you fill it full of water and ice.
You can totally do that. You can get an ice barrel and you can do that, and that's absolutely amazing as well. But that cold connection is something which has been well documented now. Exactly, and you know, Wim Hof and lots of different people, Laird Hamilton and all these guys doing different things to do with the cold. You don't have to throw a stone very far to see someone that's doing cold stuff and seeing real benefits for people with menopause. It's now been proven that there's some science which is backing up that it's really helpful for dementia, for memory, and so there's just like loads and loads of information out there about why it's so good. So
And for the future then, what does the future look like for Gilly?
Blimey. So I'm setting up a wee partnership with another 2 friends to work more with people to help them getting into cool water. So there's a really amazing charity near Kendal called Growing Well, and they're a mental health charity, and they work on a farm, and it's an organic farm, and they work with ex-servicemen and then people from the local area to show them about how being outside, connection to nature, and working on the farm. But I'm going to be giving them some experiences of coming into open water. So it's something that they can do for themselves, for their own mental well-being. You don't need any kit, you just need an understanding and a basic knowledge. So I'm working with them this year, which will be great, and some more illustrations, and then I've got my big rock climbing festival that I run every year as well, which is another thing.
I meant to touch on that. So you have WTF, the Women's Trad Festival.
Yeah, that's right.
And how did that come about?
So we're going to be in our 7th or 8th year this year, and the Women's Trad Fest is just a rock climbing festival. It's underpinned on sort of mental well-being, accessibility and sustainability in the outdoors, and it's to get more women into trad climbing and to help women who are already into trad climbing to progress up, in terms of qualifications or in terms of their own knowledge and understanding. In the UK, it's about 10% of rock climbing instructors are women, so we're just trying to build on that, show role models that are females in the outdoors, that are guides and doing all that stuff. And also at the other end is just for people that are maybe sport climbers that do a lot of climbing inside. Trad climbing is quite expensive to get into, and we give them all the gear. We give them professional instructing for 2 days, and it's in an off-grid carbon neutral festival, which is in the Peak District. So the tickets sell out in less than a minute. So now we do a ballot, and it's the last weekend in July. Yeah, so it's great fun.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of guys come and help out as well, because we don't have enough female instructors. But also the guys get loads out of it as well and want to come back. So it's not a female only event. We have about 10 or 15% guys come to support as volunteers or as instructors. So, so I'm quite busy with that as well.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I'm quite busy this year actually. Yeah, so that's the other thing.
So lots going on. And other thing I just wanted to mention was the film, which showed at Kendal and got rave reviews. I didn't manage to catch it. I was somewhere else, unfortunately.
In the bar.
Probably, yeah. More than likely. Yes, unfortunately. But they're going to be showing it at Sheffield Adventure Film Festival.
The Body of Water film, which is about me basically looking for ice last year, not last year, year before, it's shot 2.5 years ago now, is getting shown on the Kendal Mountain Festival tour in Whitley Bay and some other places that will be shown on there. And then I'm not sure what the directors are going to do with it after that. They might just make it on a release and put it onto Vimeo or YouTube or whatever. And then there's another wee short film which has been accepted into Sheffield, which is called Zero, and that's just a really short 4-minute film, and there's no speaking in it, and it's just about me going up to a very high tarn last February and getting into an ice hole, making a lovely big ice hole and getting into that.
I've seen some images, I'm sure, of that, some stills from that.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Okay, so you got those two still doing the rounds, as it were, on the festivals and things like that. And you've got a busy year to come. Yeah,
quite busy. Yeah. I'll mostly be here.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's been great. Thanks for your time, Gilly. I know that obviously you are busy, and I know you get asked for, what you were telling me earlier, you get asked for lots of other podcasts, so I'm honoured.
Thank you for getting into the water.
No problem. No problem. I feel it's a kind of trade-off. I don't know if it's any. No. But yeah, it's been great. Great to talk to you. Great to catch up with you, and catch you again sometime soon.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much.
No problem at all.
See you again soon.
Yeah, excellent.